Hey, it's Reimmerse, back for month 18, 1.5 years. That is a impressively long time, I'll be honest. And here I am, still doing Korean. It's I would say this month I definitely had I think a very strong kind of increase in motivation. Definitely in the first couple weeks, it kind of slowed down. So last week I was back in California the whole week for a conference, and I was super busy and doing career professional stuff, and I just didn't do any Korean for a week. And I probably could have made time, but I was just completely packed. And honestly, I don't really even feel that bad about it because I was having a ton of fun. It was really important, really valuable kind of career networking stuff. But yeah, that kind of obviously slowed down some of the momentum. But I was really feeling it earlier in the month, and I think I have a lot to talk about. So hopefully this is a more interesting episode than some of the others have been. Tying back to, I think this was maybe last month, September or August, but I had written a letter to the Korean couple who runs my dry cleaner back home, and my parents gave it to them, and they said that they were really, really happy to receive it, and it really made their day. So that's really sweet. And I mean, now I'm a little anxious because I have to go talk to them when I go home for Thanksgiving. So we'll we'll see how that goes. But that's really nice. Okay, this was the third. So this was the first week of October. I was waiting for the bus, and I sit down, and there's these two guys by there, and they're speaking Korean, and I don't know if this was probably the best thing, but instead of saying hi, I decide let me just listen. Let me just listen, right? This is some good practice, right? Some real IRL immersion. And I'm listening for like 10 minutes. The bus is taking forever. I honestly, it was pretty loud, and they were sitting maybe 5 feet away. And even then, my comprehension isn't amazing. I didn't understand all that much. I was, just trying to pick out words and pieces. Yeah, that was kind of weird. Anyways, after 10 minutes, they asked me something about what bus I'm waiting for, and I'm like, oh, how do I say this? And I'm like, 저 듣고 있어요. And that's really fucking weird. Just be like, oh, by the way, I've just been listening this whole time. But they were really chill. And one of the guys, I was texting with him after, and it's I've done a little bit of texting, so I also went back on Hello Talk for a bit this month, and I think here I'll talk a lot about output in a bit. Let me just get through this next stuff. Anyway, so I met those guys. Are really cool, and that was fun. Okay. I feel my kind of perception of my own skills has kind of fluctuated. There are times where I feel really good, and I would say where I'm at now is it's been 18 months. It's not looking too good. I mean, it's not you're not bound by some track. I think the thing is, Refold, immersion, they kind of draw you in with these huge success stories, right? And absolutely some people really reach a high level in 2 years. I would say that's probably about the minimum, right? But obviously that's not going to be everyone, and there are probably much more people who it's a 5-year track, right? But they're equally successful. But it's definitely putting yourself on some kind of related timeline. It's 18 months. Anyways, I watched, I listened to this DD's podcast here. Let me pull it up. And usually when I listen, I actually find that it's kind of easy to space out. I don't know what it is about listening, but when I watch these with subtitles, I watch the video with subtitles, I find that I'm much more locked in. So I watched this video about how she learned English, and this was, I think, the first week of October. I wrote really actually redeveloped confidence watching with Korean subs and fully engaged. And I wrote, pause for a bit and like, damn, that is pretty cool. And honestly, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I can just, watch these videos and like enjoy it. But yeah, okay. Now on to this like kind of larger discussion of like what's next and output, and I'll tie this into a kind of like story from 2 weeks ago in a bit. So, I went through the refold guide again, like the full thing. And here are some of my takeaways. So one, there was this quote: "If you aren't engaged, your mind will wander and you won't acquire anything." And I've definitely felt this. There's a crazy difference between, like I said, walking with a podcast and I'm like, I'm fucking looking at the sky, looking at the clouds, looking at the trees, and it's just kind of happening in the background versus like when I'm watching the podcast in bed and I'm like locked into the subtitles. Like you just, if you're not engaged, it's like, it's almost like not even like, it's still worth doing. But like, I even feel sometimes where it's like, I'm fucking like, what the fuck am I doing? Like just listening and I'm not even paying attention. Okay. Quote here. Look, it's right here. "It's normal to feel occasionally like your comprehension has suddenly got worse. This is an illusion." Again, I definitely see how like I don't think your comprehension ever really like goes back down. Like maybe you have these kind of like subjective kind of like drops. But I definitely I think that maybe this doesn't account for like a plateau where maybe you're like used to like the growth, like feeling like you understood more than you did like a month ago. And I like, I'm not really sure I feel that way. And maybe that's because I haven't been immersing that much. Like that's totally real. Like, I'm super busy with school and I definitely am not spending as much time as like I think I'd like to. It's funny because if I totally have like the time to commit more, and I'll talk about this more later. Anyways, okay. A comprehension model. This model is actually really valuable because I even kind of like talk about how to say comprehension in percentages, and that's just not very useful, right? Like this kind of model of like bits and pieces, just story, comfortable, automatic. And where I'm at, sorry, where I'm at right now, some of the podcast episodes, like that one podcast episode I watched, I feel like at level 5. It depends on the vocab. Like, if there's conversations where it kind of goes onto a topic I like haven't really heard before, then it definitely drops down. But there are definitely some podcast episodes where I watch with subtitles and I feel like a 5, and that's cool. It's not a lot, but it's definitely a non-zero amount. Web dramas kind of feel like a 4. The bus stop conversation I put at like a 2. On here, the immersion guide, where is it? They talk about, they say bare minimum 30 minutes intensive, 90 minutes free flow per day. And guys, I'm not hitting that. I'm not hitting that. Okay. And it starts to feel bad because like, I've been doing it for so long. Like I keep telling myself it's this thing I'm committed to. And I also have these like, kind of longer term goals. Like I really don't want to like go to Korea. If I end up doing that and feel like, I think the worst, and I think you can feel like this no matter how good you are when you go, right? Oh, I could have studied more. Oh, I could have been better. But there's definitely like, I could be decent at speaking Korean when I go, or I could be like still 6 months behind from where I could have been. And, that the difference is going to be how much time I put in every day. It's just like little things. And there's definitely these moments. And this is like, I think part of a larger discussion of like making conscious choices towards the things you decide that you want to value. Where, every day, like there's like a little choice, right? Like, okay, am I going to open up TikTok? And I think I've talked about this in previous episodes. I swear I'm saying the same fucking shit every month and nothing changes. Anyways, am I going to open up TikTok or am I going to open up like Instagram Reels and watch Korean Reels? And I tell myself that this is something I want to do, but I would say like over the past couple of weeks, like I would say I've been disappointed with my choices. I guess I could focus more, right? I think that's the thing where it's like, it's really hard because there's a lot of English YouTube I really want to watch. And it's not like I don't want to watch Korean, but it's like, yeah, these are like videos I really want to watch. I only have so much time and, it's tough. The other thing is that they were talking about like bare minimum, like 2 hours a day. And like, I don't think there was one point where I was doing 2 hours a day, but like, I don't think I've been consistently doing 2 hours a day, but I still have some like semblance of progress, right? Like obviously not as fast as some of these other people. Anyways, okay. They talk about ready to move to stage 3, which is starting output when you have level 5 comprehension of slice of life TV shows, like picking an episode of a native show you never watched before and having near perfect comprehension. And I am very, very far from that. Very, very far. And you know, I think here's the thing. I believe them when they say that it's very hard to output without like comprehending the things you want to say. And the reason I believe them is because when I have these kind of basic conversations, the things that feel very comfortable for me to say are the things I fully understand. And it just happens that there's just not a very large domain that I understand at a very high level, right? Like I understand, you know, very basic stuff, you know, very limited set of vocab. And like this is a lot of stuff compared to like a complete beginner, right? But in terms of like all of the possible things you could say. And so to me, you know, it follows pretty well that like if the things I feel comfortable saying are pretty limited because my comprehension is pretty limited, then, you know, it's probably because my comprehension is pretty limited, right? You know, I think it's, or here, I'll keep going through my notes. Okay, they say reading novels will delay output, and that's great because I didn't want to read novels anyway. Okay, output. Quote, language acquisition produces an intuition of what sounds right and natural. This intuition can be so strong that it becomes a barrier to beginning to output. When you're first starting to output, you won't live up to your intuitive understanding of the language, which can create a jarring experience. You'll be able to notice many errors, but not be able to correct them. I said this hits hard. Like I definitely feel, you know, you're so, or I guess the immersion is so like, how do I sound natural as possible? Like all I want to say is sound natural. And there's so many things that like, you know, I could come up with a way to communicate it, but I'm like, this is not the right way, right? Like is this right? Like, I'm not really sure. You'll say something and you're like, this doesn't sound right. Or, yeah, you know, I think the output guide is very detailed. I basically like after reading like the first like one or first couple, I kind of like started skimming because I'm just clearly not ready. You know, it's tough because the timeline was, I mean, this is still the timeline. So the plan to go to Korea, you know, we'll see if it works out this way, would be January of 2026, or February 2026, right? So spring of 2026. And so that would be, you know, around a year from a couple months. So my plan was, you know, grind out the immersion for 6 more months to 2 years. And at 2 years, which would be, what was the first month? May. So it'd be May. And then I'd have 7 to 8 months to work on output. And the thing I wrote down was in 6 months, like if I like, am actually like in February, I like get into this program and I like am going to Korea, right? Like I am going no matter what. In 6 months, do I start trying to output even though I'm not at this level 5 understanding? You know, obviously I'd like to be there. But like, you know, what do I do if I don't? Because at some point you got to start outputting, and that takes a lot of time, right? Like that's not easy. And, you know, but also on some level you're like, well, Refold tells me like I need a certain level of comprehension. You know, what do I do? I don't know. Okay. Next in the notes, I wrote, I have a strong sense of motivation. Quote, I feel like I can achieve a really high level. I think, you know, I don't know if I said the same thing last month, but, you know, in the beginning, the goal was just to reach kind of where I'm at now. And now where I'm at now, it's like, okay, it is realistic for me to achieve a high level in this language, but also like, you know, I like want to, it's like I know I'm capable of doing that. I have this like timeline. I'm halfway there. I mean, halfway is maybe a stretch, but I'm like some way there. And Yeah, I wrote sometimes hard to stay focused when immersing. I wonder how many actual minutes I get in. I'll be honest. If I like measured the amount of time I immerse, I think it'd be really fucking sad. Like I think it would be like holy shit. Like, whoa, this is the reason why you don't feel like you're fucking improving, because you're just not putting in the hours, right? And I mean, it's like any fucking skill, right? Like if you're not putting in the time, like I had my first piano lesson for jazz piano today, and the guy gave me like like a couple things to do for next week, and I can't fucking do them right now. Obviously it's like things to work on. Um, and that takes time. Like, and I'm like, damn, like, I gotta find like 2 fucking hours to practice this shit. Um, but anyways, here. So I'll talk about KLT. So there's this club called Korean Language Table. It's really fun. I think what was fun about it was, yeah, I'd say I have some level of like, I don't know about shame, but like I don't go around telling people publicly I'm learning Korean. Um, there's a lot of kind of like subtle reasons for that. And I don't actually think it's something to really be ashamed about. Actually, I went to this like philosophy discussion about like self-actualization, and the person was like, you gotta um, really be accepting of like who you are, and if you like hide stuff, it just only like serves to hurt you. Anyways, but it was fun to like be in a kind of like community where I didn't really feel judged, but I was better than some people there, and it's like, wow, like that's really cool. Like it's so cool you've been doing Korean for 1.5 years. Um, there was this person there, and they were like a very like output focused person, and I literally like preached. Okay, I like the immersion gospel. I preached the immersion gospel. I don't even know how to explain it. It literally felt like, um, it felt exactly like a Christian preacher, right? Like Christian is just like or Christianity is a religion that like you like, I forgot what the term is, but it's like a religion that you like spread and you want to like encourage other people. I mean, I'm not a Christian, but I think immersion is the same way, where like you have this like way of thinking that you feel like is a fundamentally better way of learning, and there's a lot of like doctrine, and there's a lot of like answers to like the different questions that come up, and like I just like preached for an hour. I was trying to convince these people that like to like subscribe to the immersion way. I think I could have done a slightly better job at presenting, like being kind, because like at least like some ways of like giving the immersion doctrine kind of like looks down upon these like output first focused views. And I think I think I was slightly maybe rude once or twice. Like I think I actually like said like, I think immersion learning. I mean, honestly, this is true. Like I think immersion learning is like the superior way. Anyways, some interesting thoughts that came up in that discussion. Usually the way I'll describe it is, input is the single biggest factor in language learning. The quantity and the quality of your input, that's all that matters. But that's actually incorrect. Those are factor 2 and 3, right? The real first factor is motivation, right? If you don't have motivation, you're not learning that fucking language, right? Like you need motivation to stay committed for years. And so if the only way you're motivated to learn a language is to have conversations, and that's the only way you end up getting your input, because you do get some level of input through conversations, then I think that's great, right? And if that's the only way you're motivated, then that is the way you should learn the language. Now, do I think that is like the fastest possible way to learn the language? Like, no. But I think that motivation comes first. And I actually think that motivation can be one of the things that's kind of hard about immersion learning, especially at first. The other thing is kind of like the level you want to achieve, right? So at this point, I'm aiming for like a Matt vs. Japan, like Katsumoto level of like extremely high native sounding Korean, right? And I think that's different from a conversational level, right? Like there's a lot of foreign English speakers with a very strong accent, and they make mistakes, or like mistakes in the sense of like common like American English. And no one would even for a moment think that they're a native, right? But they don't care, right? They're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I know English, right? And they can communicate, and they go around their day, and they live here, and it's awesome, okay? And if you want to have like that level of kind of proficiency in a language, I actually think it could be fair to say that immersion learning might be a bad way to achieve basic but limited conversational skills. but I think it's interesting because, I've kind of been learning alone for a very long time. And so to, see other people who kind of have different perspectives and different views was very interesting. The other thing I was kind of worried about at this club was like getting like bad learner input. Like, this is one of the things Matt talks about where he'll say like, in these classes, like you don't actually get a lot of input, and the input you do get is like really shit Korean from your classmates. Like that, like it's really bad, bad accent, grammar mistakes everywhere. But like this is like really only concerned in like years of classes or at the very beginning, or if that's all your input. Also, like when I was having this conversation, I was very like anti-output. Like I was literally like output's like evil. And I rewatched this video. It's like, is early output a sin? This video, okay, very, very good. Like go watch this video right now. And I was actually wrong. Like my views had kind of skewed away from the gospel, I guess, what Matt says. I mean, he's an imperfect man, but, and in this video, he's actually very reasonable. And he talks about how, like, yeah, if you want to like go have a conversation, like, and they'll even talk about how like a lot of immersion learners have this like fear, like actually like a fear of speaking. But like I said, when I start speaking, so I went back on Hello Talk, and there was just one person, and they're like, "Oh, like talking Korean." I was like, would you promise to correct like every single mistake I make? And they're like, "Yes, yes, yes." And we had this conversation, and I kept being like, "Are you sure? Like you're not correcting anything? Because like you haven't made a correction in like 5 messages. Like, are you sure?" And they're like, "No, no, no. Like you're actually saying good things." But yeah, the things I like say are like very basic, but like that's the case. Like even if you had comprehension, like very good comprehension, I think that. It's very hard to come up with complex things right at the start. And that's why, like, again, like in this timeline, I really want to give myself like a good 8 months to really dedicate to output. Yeah. So this last week in SF, like I basically, took a break from Korean. But now it's really back to the grind. So, we're 18 months in. We've reached a decent point. I'd say the progress, again, I've been saying the same fucking shit for months. It's like an interesting discussion of like, commitment and motivation and discipline. I think discipline really. And it's not that you should have to force yourself, right? But at some point there's some hard decisions, right? And I think this connects to like a larger discussion of like I think I've literally said this in a video before, but I'm just going to say it again. There's this guy and he's like a programming YouTuber, and he like does all these like things. He streams, makes videos, has a job, his kids, and people are like, how the fuck do you do all that shit? And he obviously works really hard. But one of the things he said was, when he started doing all that stuff, the first thing that went was video games. He said the video games had to go. Video games had to go. They were fun, but the video games had to go. And I think that that's the kind of thing where you gotta make the hard choice. And by hard choice, I mean like, not fucking going on TikTok, right? Like this is not a really fucking hard choice. But I think that this kind of discipline is actually a really good skill, just in general, outside of this language learning thing, right? I think that I've never really been someone to have a problem with drugs, but I think that these are the same kind of like the same exact thought process when you're like at home and it's like, oh, like I could like go have a drink and just kind of like watch TV drunk the rest of the night, or I could like actually do something productive. Like it's the same thought process. Again, I'm not an alcoholic, but I think I tell myself this is something I want to do. I've been doing it for 18 months. I tell myself I want to achieve a high level. I have plans to go to Korea. Like, yeah, it's time to lock in. It's time to lock in, and it's hard because there's just a limited amount of time, and there's so many things I want to do, and it's so easy. It's so easy to go on TikTok. It's so easy to, just listen to like music when you're walking. I watched this video about Nick Saban. He's a football coach, or a retired former football coach for Alabama. Which if you're not from the U.S., they're like the best college football team for years. And they did really well, but Saban talks about this process, all about the process. And it took years to build up his team to win their first championship, and And even when they didn't do well, he was all about the process. And he's always like, even when they're winning, it's like, you know, he demands like the like highest standard from his team. And I think that's something I really respect, where I think it's very easy to look back and make it seem like it wasn't all that hard, or it didn't require all that much work. But, you know, these days, like right now, where I should be like, you know, locking in and getting 2 hours of immersion every day. And then, you know, in a year from now, when I am pretty good, hopefully, you know, we'll fucking see, we can look back and be like, you know, I'm in a good place now, but it's because I put in the work. I put in the hours. You know, I made those choices, and it was non-trivial, right? Like, I made that choice every single day to make time for Korean, and it cost other things, maybe fun, little cheap things, but I did it, and now I seek the reward. I have the reward. And I think that's something I aspire to reach. So this is kind of, you know, I feel like I've been saying the same shit for months, which is not particularly great. But, you know, here, we'll see what it's like next month. But yeah, so here's the plan. 1.5 years. Here's the plan. We got 6 more months to 2 years. And then I think we're going to start outputting. I think no matter where we're at, I think we got to start. But I think the goal is lock in on the immersion and reach. Like, I would love at 2 years to read this statement and be like, fuck yeah, let's go to stage 3. I'm ready for output, right? That would be an amazing feeling. It's not a good feeling to be like, oh, I don't think I'm ready, but I got to. I'm running out of time, right? I don't want to feel that. And I know that if I don't do the immersion, like, I'm not going to feel that way. So now's the time to lock in, make the choices each day, and we can do it. I know we can do it. It's totally possible. 6 months is a lot of time. I've already made a lot of progress. Totally doable. And it's going to require some fucking discipline. It's going to require hard work, focus. But in 6 months, we're going to watch back this video and be like, fuck yeah, we did that. All right? So thank you all for continuing to watch and be there and follow along. I really love reading the comments every video. It really is very motivating and supportive. And I hope that maybe this is helpful for you in some way. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you next month for month 19, hopefully with some good news. Hopefully it's going good. And that's all I have to say. All right, Reimmerse out. See you.